It's time for the visit with the person of high strangeness, now that you found me. As some of you have figured out, I'm either on channel 29 or 22 in Olympia, Washington. But also they changed my time for the year 2001. I now air on at 9:30, and I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but that's how it turned out. All the other stations are still on the same time frame. This is one of a series of shows I'm going to do with musicians that I'm sure you're going to enjoy very, very much. And so as a result of that, we will do some really incredible things for you today. I need to also let you know that our friend Keith Eubanks, he did not get better. He went on and left this earth. And so this show is dedicated to him today. And then one of the other things I want to share with you, Kavanzas over in Kanashibashan, your friend and mine, sent me some Kavanza gifts, and I wanted to show them to you, if that's possible. What she did is, I want to, whoops, excuse me, I want to show these to you. What she did, because at Kavanza time, we don't buy gifts, we make them. And so she did these really neat, what do you call those, light switches? And I thought that was incredible, and I wanted to show you that. So that's the big one. And pretty soon I have a whole collection. And then here is another one. I'll put that over just like this. And so you see, you can make really wonderful Kavanza gifts and for other occasions with hardly spending any money at all. And here's the third one. And I just wanted to share that with you, and she sends her love. I'm going to introduce you to my guest for today. Her name is Beth Quist. And hi, Beth, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you.
It's incredible that you even got here. So we thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit about your life's quest here in a little while, but what I wanted to do is show the friends what brought all this about and how you got to the studio in the first place. Here a while back, we went to the Performing Arts Center in Olympia, and we filmed a band called Maya Soleil, and then another band came along, and I can't pronounce their name.
The Guarneri Underground.
Guarneri, that's what, yeah.
He was a violin maker.
Underground. And the incredible thing with that was that they had 2 electric fiddles. And that was just incredible.
Jeff and John.
Jeff and
wonderful,
John.
Wonderful players.
So we were very busy filming, you know, the show. We had permission to do that. And so I wasn't really paying attention. And all of a sudden, I heard this incredible sound, which was you playing that bowl. And so what I thought we'll do is share that insert. Now, keep in mind, it was dark, and this was done at the Performing Arts in Olympia, Washington. So if we could set up for that and be nice enough to play that insert that so captured my attention, and as a result of that, we got to spend this time together. And we'll just listen to that. It's just so incredible.
Bobby McFerrin, she's one of the most amazing
there you are.
And it gives me
Down on the
great
bottom,
pleasure
see.
to introduce to you this evening here at the Washington Center,
That's what you're doing.
Beth Quist. But before we get started, there's a store in town called Traditions, and we found this bowl at Traditions, and you may have seen them in Traditions. So Beth is going to show you what they do.
And with that began our acquaintance. I thought it was pretty incredible. Would you agree?
Oh, thank you.
Now, just a little while ago, we realized that the opening shot that we had today, that is a Russian Orthodox church in Germany. And when you fly into Frankfurt, you can't help but noticing it because of the gold, what do you call the things on the top?
Oh, I just called them onion domes. They might
Onion
have
domes.
They might have a more formal architectural term, but that I don't know.
Well, the onion domes, you will see them, and then you told me that was very appropriate because of where you were born. So after the Performing Arts Center, I'm going to take you back in time to the beginning as far as you can go, if you don't mind.
I can take you back to conception.
Oh,
maybe even before.
We can. Sure, yeah. Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So where would you like to start? We would like to kind of talk about your life, how you got from here to here, and some of the stumbling blocks and the lessons in between.
Do you want to start at conception?
Go ahead.
I was conceived on the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, well, that's a good one.
Yeah, I have a really deep connection with the ocean, actually, because of that, I think. I don't know. Who knows what the ramifications of that are. But on a boat on the way over to Europe with my parents, they had just gotten married. And then I was born in Heidelberg, West Germany, and lived there till I was almost 2, and then moved back to the United States. And that's when I first was exposed to piano. I'd been exposed to music already, but piano.
Yeah, yesterday you said that your first language is music.
Oh, yeah.
And I really kind of like that term. Originally, when you sent me your bio, it says that, you told me a story about a piano. Your grandfather had the piano?
It was at my grandparents' house, and it had belonged to my great-grandmother. And so it was very old, and they actually ended up having to tune it a half step lower. Otherwise, the soundboard would have cracked even worse. It was pretty bad already. But that's, thank the universe that there was that instrument there, because that's, I was hearing music from actually the television. I was hearing Star Trek and Batman, those were my first musical influences. But also Dr. Zhivago. I heard my grandfather play Dr. Zhivago on his organ when they lived in Boston, and I came back. We were in upstate New York where the piano was, and came back and started figuring out the song from Dr. Zhivago, and that's when my mother, she said that when she really realized that, okay, this is something that they have to nurture, and thank you that they did. I owe a lot to my parents recognizing that in me, and they started me with lessons when I was 6.
And then I understand that your first composition was at age 8.
Yeah.
Do you remember that one?
It was called "I'm a Little Leopard Prowling Around in Sneakers." And I had these leopard pajamas, and I would run around. Sometimes I'd want to run around outside in my pajamas, and I had sneakers, and I wrote a song about it. So that was my first composition.
Yeah, like Rosie O'Donnell would say. So we wrote a song about it in 2010. Pretty cool. Excuse me. I have some obstructions in my throat, and sometimes I involuntarily cough, so I can breathe and can talk to you some more. All the friends know that, in case you think I'm having a coughing attack here. Okay. And then, did you start your music classes early, or that came later on?
What, the lessons?
Music class lessons, yeah. Wrong word.
Oh, it's been my entire life since I was 6 years old. Yeah. Well, lessons. I mean, I certainly got the lessons just from my ear, figuring things out. But my first exposure to a teacher was starting at age 6, and then I actually quit piano for a little while in junior high. I had a piano teacher that didn't really work, I think, for me personality-wise. She was a very hardcore disciplinarian, and I don't respond quite as well to that. I respond more to fun, and so I actually ended up in junior high. Well, actually, starting 4th grade, I started getting into choirs, and I was always, singing beforehand, and I had a bunch of vocal solos and things like that in grade school, and then junior high I took a guitar class and never played guitar before and ended up being the teacher's assistant within 2 weeks. So it came very, very quickly.
Yeah, well, we had kind of touched on that here the other day, is that like there's some geniuses, you know, like Bobby McFerrin that you're acquainted with, and I think Prince. And when you get here like that, you know, as a genius, I don't think we learned that in this life. What do you think?
Oh, probably not. Yeah, I can't explain a lot of this. You know, the way that I began singing Greek music, I don't understand why it came so easily. It just did, and it could have been from a past life because I don't have Greek blood. You know, it's not in my family. I didn't hear it as a child, and so it was bam. It was just there, and it completely changed my life.
Did that being different now? I know what it feels like to grow up different. Did that create a problem for you, or was that just?
Oh, it was difficult.
Difficult, no?
Oh, you betcha. Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of things that made me different. I think the most difficult time for me was probably junior high school, 7th through 9th grade. I was really, really tall and very skinny and very smart and had the music thing going. I mean, so I was pretty much of a geek, very, very much so. But I found similar geeks to hang out with. There were some teachers in that school that made all the difference. There was one who was actually the head. I joined a magic club, and I actually became the musician for the magic club. And the teacher, he had one of the biggest. I have such a great memory of him. I have another teacher. I don't know. I really appreciate the teachers in my life. But his name was Larry Crowley, and he was the head of the Magic Club, so I thought that was really appropriate. And I think he still teaches in Colorado, I hope, because he was a very inspiring teacher for me. And he taught what they called life science, which was the 7th grade equivalent of biology, but then he also had the Magic Club, and I was the token musician for the Magic Club.
So a while ago we were in Boston, so now we're in Colorado. So you actually, did you go straight to Colorado?
No, we moved around a fair amount before we ended up in Colorado. Actually,
you were an Army brat, no?
Well, no, my father, when we moved to upstate, he went to Vietnam, and when he came back, he decided, I think, that he didn't want to be in the Army, and he decided to go back to school.
I see.
He had been at West Point, and he decided to get his master's degree in mechanical engineering, so he went to school in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and Albuquerque, New Mexico, got his master's. And then we moved to Austin, Texas for 4 years. And he worked at IBM. He got a job at IBM there. And then applied for a transfer to Boulder. And actually the first time I think he tried to move to Boulder, they didn't approve the transfer. And the second time we got there. So starting at age 8, I've been living in Boulder. And then very, very recently moved here.
Yes, we have a lot of friends in Colorado, so when we make reference to different things and when we picked pictures and things, we did go to Colorado.
Yes.
Because in a few weeks you're going to come back and do a little, when we're going to talk about all your songs, but that's a little down the lane here. Now, so you've always improvised your instruments, or you just...
You know, I think composition really is, improvisation is spontaneous composition. And so starting writing songs early, but I think one of the things that got me first into, more heavily into improvisation, there were a couple of turning points. One was when I quit taking piano lessons. So I wasn't getting exposed to as much classical repertoire. I was still playing some, but it was, I began playing more for myself then. And then the second, really the biggest turning point with improvisation for me was accompanying for dance classes. When I got to the university, I began playing for modern dance classes. And I really hadn't had much exposure formally to improv. I just threw myself into it, and boy, I kind of feel sorry for the first dancers that had to listen to me play. But now I feel very good about my dance accompaniment.
One of the things we talked about, that was yesterday, was that when we're different, we don't know that. We assume that everybody is like that.
My range, I discovered was unusual.
The range, that's right. Yeah, that's what I want to go
10th grade, actually, I had a choir teacher. We actually lived in Vermont for a year. My dad got a second degree there. IBM took care of everything. Burlington, it was a great town. I discovered myself a lot that year. Had a couple of very good teachers in the music department at South Burlington High School. And I always thought, oh, I'm a second soprano. I must be just a mezzo, because I have the middle range as well, and I also have a lower range. So I thought, okay, well, let's sort of take the average. Yeah. And she heard the high notes and said, no, you're a soprano. And it gave me a couple of angel solos, where I had to hit those high notes. And so she she was the one who really made me realize that, oh, this is unusual, this range. And that was a wonderful musical year for me. I took a 10th grade level, at the high school level, they had a great theory course. George Bedell taught it. I think his name was George. But our final project for the end of the year was to write 132 measures for full orchestra.
Oh my!
So it was very challenging and just really a good basis, really a great basis for the rest of my life, really.
I was fortunate enough to see Maria Callas in concert twice, and back to what we did, the song that we played a while ago. When you start, I said, oh my goodness, because I had really never heard that. Since then, I was so impressed with that. Yeah, and I lost my thought, but that's okay too, because let's see, we was good. Oh yeah. Eventually, when you started writing your own music, did your background you didn't have classical background by any chance, did you?
Oh yeah, that was my piano.
The piano.
Vocally, I don't really have classical background other than choral. I never took an individual class. I never took a one-on-one class. Well, I might have had one of those, but it was always through choir that I got my vocal classical exposure. And I'm actually rather thankful for that, because when it came to sing, particularly, well, the first style that I was exposed to that uses the yodeling kind of technique, it uses the break in your voice. I discovered later, it's that Bulgarians use it, the day, and also Persians use it. It's used in many, many folk cultures, even Appalachian stuff. But in classical singing, I think bel canto, I'm sure there are other techniques. You try to smooth that break over. You try to get rid of that break so you don't hear it. And I discovered singing with my friend Joanne Del Carpine, who lives in Boulder, who she's got a beautiful soprano, very classically trained voice. She couldn't get it right away. It was difficult for her to find that break because she had spent so many years
trying to get rid of it.
Yeah. So and I think part of the reason that it came so easily was because I hadn't had the classical training. So the Greek and Turkish and all that
you just fell into it. It's like I was telling you. I looked up and I said, oh, what a creature! Out of left field, just sort of fell in our lap here. So we really
Boulder is left field.
Well, yeah.
Good town to grow up in.
And they say that we pick our parents. So was you pretty lucky picking the parents that you did? Were they supportive? Or?
Yeah, they're wonderful people. They're really, really good folk. They gave me lessons. They never discouraged me. They did. I remember encourage me to have a backup plan when I went to college, and say that, well, maybe I should get another degree other than music, because my initial idea was to go for a music degree, but then I thought, well, maybe I should do a backup. But my backups were kind of not very functional, so to speak. I chose English creative writing. Like there's a lot of money in creative writing. but I did that specifically for the poetry, for songwriting, and then fine art, studio art, both of which, are artistic realms.
Yeah.
But then I found myself playing piano all the time and just transferred over to the music school very quickly. But so they were encouraging in a lot of different ways. They really. I also was very lucky to grow up in the mountains right outside of Boulder. I think that had a lot to do with exposing me to nature and getting me grounded in the earth, with the earth, coming from a place of creativity that really helps, so I don't get lost.
Yeah, now then eventually you also picked what I consider a three-dimensional cause. That is something that takes you out of the spiritual realm into the real world and the problems.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's environmentalism for sure. And again, having grown up in the mountains, I think gave me quite an appreciation for nature, for the natural beauty, for trees, for mountains. And growing up in a dry climate, I appreciate water a lot, and that's one of the reasons I moved out to this area.
Well, if you was conceived on the ocean, I guess the river is the second best
I have a
thing
song
you can get to.
that I'd like to do in the next show, and whenever, I'm not sure when you're going to be airing that, but that's about a dolphin reincarnation dream that I had.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Oh,
so we can talk about that one.
I'm not familiar with your material at all.
Yeah.
And so, but anytime, anytime you wanna do some in between here, that's fine too. And because the main thing is for people to get to know you, and like you sitting in their living room, and so it would be wonderful if you became a household word. Now, just to refresh my memory, you got a whole thing of names here, people that you've played with. I'm familiar with Bobby McFerrin and Wendy Wu, and that's it.
Oh, you know Wendy.
Yeah, we've crossed paths.
Yeah, she's
there.
out of Boulder. Yeah.
And so you have quite a bio here, but not just from your music, just by having talked to you. You so speak from the heart, and that's really a rare quality.
Thanks.
So we'll get back to the money for a minute here, and that that's always very important. The Aborigines didn't have a word for work. Well, I guess they still don't, because if it's not fun, you're not going to do it. And there's a difference between doing something because you have to and something that you're born to do. So how does that balance with money?
Well, it's tricky. It's a difficult profession for sure. It's been a struggle for me, certainly financially, to have enough coming in, and also there's the balance of. I had some opportunities in the past, certainly, to sign contracts that maybe could have supported me financially, but would have ended up being, for example, one person wanted complete power of attorney over me, and rights to absolutely everything that I had written ever, including stuff that I collaborated with.
Yeah.
And things like that don't quite. It doesn't feel right to me. Certainly there's an amount of sharing that has to happen if somebody is supporting you, but and I've had some good contracts that have ended up falling through due to family personal reasons. So I know they're out there. I know that they're.
Yeah, but you see here, and here the thing is integrity. Now I ran into the same thing when I wrote my book. Any contract, and there were several of them. For the same reason, they want your rights, and you're just so handicapped, and then they can just mutilate your work.
Yeah.
But if you keep your integrity, and if that's your life's calling, that's what you're supposed to do, you stick with that, and it's just going to fall into place eventually. Is it a lonely place?
At times, I think it can get there, but also at times that aloneness is welcome. You as a writer too, I'm sure, can relate to needing the alone time to create. You need that time separate from everyone, and just to compose, to come up with the ideas. And but then you also need the experience to to get, you know, the life experience to get the ideas too.
And I understand you was in Europe here not too long ago.
Yeah, the worst time of my life.
Worst time of your life. Paris.
The absolute worst time of my life was in Paris, France.
Paris, yeah. You know, here, I just want to tell the friends here. I don't know how old you are, but do you remember the prices? No, what was the one? Let's Make a Deal. You know.
I don't know that one.
It was a game show. Let's Make a Deal, and you got these prizes, and then you could trade it in for different people. So I'm going to Paris. And
well, back then it might have been a little bit different. Oh no, it was still polluted.
It was ugly then.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's got its beauty. I mean, the architecture is amazing. But all the walls are turning black. I mean, it's just the air was horrible. I mean, it wasn't so. I mean, that was certainly part of it. You know, it contributed to the awfulness. But it was the working situation that I was put under was just. It was just incredible. I've never seen so much emotional abuse towards dancers in my life, and I've been involved with over 100 dance performances, and this was absolutely the worst I have ever seen. And then taking that abuse was incredibly difficult. And I, in a way, I'm kind of kicking myself. It's like, oh, why didn't I just leave the performance? But I was like, okay, well, I agreed to do this. I'm gonna, you know, since I'm gonna hold to my word, even though, you know, about a week into it, I almost left. I almost just said, forget it. But I said, well, I've already said I was gonna do this, so I put up with it. Oof.
Well, you know, sometimes when we come out of these traumatic experiences, and my memories of Europe are. That's another
I have
story.
some good ones too in Europe,
I don't.
though. Yeah. Oh, really?
I know.
Wow.
I don't. And here again, because the ethnic setup, and when you're in a category, I find myself, and I'm sure you did too, you're not anything, and they don't know where to put you. And
Right.
it's hard to. I would assume they categorized you as a gypsy or a North African. That's not a good thing to be in.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what people perceived me as a lot of the time, because I didn't socialize with people other than usually the immediate group. Certainly when I started talking English or you know, with the American accent, that was probably recognized. But I have to say, though, on one of the best experiences in my life was in Europe, and that was the tour with Voices Tour with Bobby McFerrin. And that was one of the best times I've ever had. And we didn't play in Paris.
You didn't play in Paris.
We didn't, yeah. But we played some wonderful places.
Now, a lot of the friends probably don't know who Bobby McFerrin is, so let me refresh your mind. Bobby McFerrin did a song many years ago. It was called Don't Worry, Be Happy.
Yeah.
That's it. And it was a happy song. You know, everybody knew it. But the man is really a musical genius, in my opinion. So,
he is.
So how, excuse me, how did you end up with Bobby anyway?
I had a friend in Boulder who knew his manager. And he had heard, this was right after I released my first CD, Lucidity. And he heard it and thought that she might really be interested in my work. And so he said, well, why don't you send Linda Goldstein is her name, Original Artists is the company. The management company. And so I sent her a CD and followed up. There's the key.
That is it, yeah.
Not everybody follows up on things, and that taught me a good lesson. I'm so glad I did.
You have to stick with it. They get tired listening to you. They'd rather talk to you than
well, I told her, oh yeah, I'm a friend of Sitara, and she said, oh, tell me what you do. She couldn't find the CD anywhere, and she said, well, could you send me another one? And so that night I was at FedEx, just send it out immediately, and she called me the very next day. She listened to it right away, and she said, I love what you're doing. We're recording an album in New York. It's Circle Songs. It's this album that I ended up recording on. She said, we need a soprano. Would you like to do it? I went, oh, yeah. Twist my arm. Bobby McFerrin. Oh, my God.
And you could have been alpha. You could have still went.
I mean, it's because I had been a fan of his for so long. It's not like I'm working with somebody who, you know, I don't really get into their music. It's somebody who I was very inspired by. And I actually met him years ago through my friend Michael Hedges.
I never really met him, but I've seen him in concert, so
yeah.
it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, yeah. It's really, you got to really, I think, to appreciate fully what he does is to see him live.
Yeah.
Because that's where you really get the idea of how he's creating the sounds, and his live performance is unparalleled.
There is a talk show now, just to make a comparison here. There's a talk show in the evening now. It's called Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's where the audience puts something out there, a word or something, and then the comedians, the people, they create the sketches. I mean, they make it up as they go along, and that's what Bobby does with.
Yeah. Well, the Circle Songs tour and album also was completely improvised. We never rehearsed. It was always, I mean, Bobby would come up with an idea, and then he'd find a, it might work for the tenors, so he'd give it to the tenors, and then he'd have them start, it's a circle song, it's like a chant. And he'd build another part around that, and then hand it off to altos or sopranos, and then he would solo over it, or one of us would solo over it. And if he heard something in the solo, he would grab onto and use that, and it was really, we got into some very deep places, especially as we got to working more with each other, and just got very comfortable, and it became almost like a family. Very wonderful people.
Yeah,
the entire group. Yeah, I mean, it really made me appreciate too the quality of people that he attracted to him. There were no ego infighting sort of things going on. I never was on stage feeling like I wasn't being held. There's support there.
Yeah, you see, now this is what I try to project, and I keep saying I. This is the perfect time to clarify that. When I say I, there isn't another word. It should be we, but then we, you think it's still another word. But what happens is cooperation, because when we are guided to do something, there is no I. It's just the word that we use, because it's all in sequence.
Yeah, yeah, collective,
yeah. Let's see, you had promised to do a song for us somewhere along the line.
Sure, I'll do something.
Any time in your life where you can work it in?
This one, actually, I wrote right after moving to Seattle.
Okay.
It's a love song, actually, and and the reason it came out right after I moved to Seattle, it's about kind of paths going like this, or going like that, and karmically, it's like, boy, why can't we quite get this to meet up? Even though there's a like the main word on it, or the main idea is we travel on the same road, but opposite ways depart. So we're on the same path. We're both artists. He's a dancer friend in New York, and yet he ended up east, I ended up west, and so this song is just about that, and an appreciation of the inspiration. He's a beautiful mover, and a very kind soul.
Well, if you could maybe share that with us,
sure,
and allow us to look into your heart here for a minute, if you will.
Yes. Also, this uses a program that I did on my keyboards, which I don't have with me, since the setup is rather elaborate. No. What I did is I used a sequence, and so that little box. I don't know if you may not be able to see it on the camera, but it's a DAT player. It's Kurzweil. That I use. So it would be as if I brought the Kurzweil. It sounds exactly the same.
Oh, wonderful.
And I played all the parts.
Yeah, so if you'd be nice enough to do that.
Yeah, I'm going to take off this microphone, so hopefully it won't make too much noise.
Yeah, you do what you do, and I'm just going to keep talking here, because this is really exciting to be able to introduce you and make you familiar with some things that is available, in even in small towns. So we really appreciate the quality of entertainment and all the work that goes into that. So it's pretty incredible. And when you run into these concerts and sometimes small cafes and places, you find just wonderful, incredible people that share their lives and hearts and souls with you. So I guess here is Beth Quist. I'm sure he's doing it. There you go. Enjoy.
One day we met upon the road. You asked me where I was going. I'm headed west to find my fame, my fortune, my unknown. I seek the same things you said, but easterly lies my heart. Travel on the same road, but opposite ways depart. I fell in love before first sight when tales of you were mentioned. Just let me give this gift to you of praise and admiration. I'll never forget the look on your face when the sound of my voice caressed you. My heart yearns to dance again, rejoice in bliss in your silver eyes lit white. Silver lit white. Silver Fate drop us on a great big sphere. Do we have a say in our part? We travel on the same road, but opposite ways depart. Silver
My, that was pretty incredible. Thank you for having shared it with us. Must be must have been an incredible person you wrote that for. Hmm?
He is.
He is.
He's a sweetheart.
Yeah. I think before you started, you mentioned that it was right about at that time when you came to Seattle. That's when you wrote this song.
Yes.
Okay, so we now brought you to the present time in Seattle, and I like to have a cue here after a while when 5 minutes before closing, and then I'm going to ask you to continue with that musical journey. But what happens is, so now you're in Seattle. How did you get here? What was the reason?
I knew I needed to get out of Boulder, and I wasn't exactly sure.
That's not a good name, Boulder, is it?
Oh, it's a rock.
Yeah, I know.
And you're bold. You could be bold.
Boulder, you're falling down the hill, tumbling down the hill.
If you're bouldering, you're climbing rocks.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I think they probably named it after the Flatirons.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
possibly. I don't know. Yeah. Really, that would be my guess. Which was native sacred ground. They're incredible rocks. I mean, you can touch those things and just go, wow.
When I interviewed you at the Performing Arts, and we haven't shared that clip in any of the shows yet, that's for later time, you said when you came to Seattle, you expected to get rain, and at that time you hadn't gotten any. Did that improve for you?
Yeah, I love humid climates. That was always a problem for me in Colorado, was because it was so dry. I was constantly running humidifiers in my room, and just would carry around a spray bottle with me everywhere. And so I knew I wanted to live someplace more humid.
They're calling for you, that's what it is. So you have to wait till
Not my phone.
No,
my phone plays Chopin.
Yeah, no, they have to wait till after the show. Go ahead.
Yes. I had ended up, God, the first time I came out to Seattle, boy, I wish that we could turn that off somehow.
That's okay, just
okay.
Ignore it.
When I first came out, it was years ago with a dance company. And it was for the Fringe Festival, and I was both dancing and performing music in that show, and just really loved it. I just thought, God, what beauty is that it's surrounded by. You've got the Cascades, and you've got the Olympics, and you've got the sound, and it's just, I mean, it really struck me as, well, here's a city, but there's also a great deal of natural beauty very close to a large city, and so I was thinking, okay, do I need to move to New York? New York would be difficult because of, I need a car for what I do because I have so much equipment, and that it wouldn't fit in a taxi cab. So to go to a gig in a taxi cab is kind of out of the question. So New York, even though I have tons of connections there, really wasn't practical. And then I thought, well, maybe San Francisco, but I didn't feel as close to nature there. I mean, you can get some there, more so than in New York City, I think. But Seattle, I came out and played the Garlic Festival in Arlington a year and a half ago, and sold more CDs in one gig than I'd ever done before, and I went, maybe
Seattle
this is a sign, and the people were so wonderful. The Israel family was really just so welcoming and kind, and I met other friends here, and just really thought, God, what a great community. There seemed to be a lot of support and a lot of, I mean, the musical community, the people that I've met have been really wonderful, wonderful people.
So what's your advice to the young people, the new ones coming in, the new entertainers, and
honor your teachers.
Honor your teachers. That's a good one.
Yeah, because without them, we'd be nowhere. I think teachers should be the highest paid profession. I think they're the most important.
Some people would agree with you, but we get into the way people look at it. And in fact, there's a really good commercial right now talking about, when you grow up, become a doctor, and then the child says, well, I want to be a teacher, because without a teacher, there would be no doctors.
Exactly.
So this, it's very appropriate.
Yep.
what is next for you? Do you know? Well, what would you like to have?
Well, I want to do a new CD. And I've started working on what's either going to be demo tracks for that. Actually, we played some of them in the studio a little bit earlier. So I'll either be doing demo tracks to hopefully score some kind of a label deal, probably with an independent. But if I got offered a decent deal with a larger label, I would consider it. I would be very careful with the larger labels, however, because I've had some friends who've had some really extreme difficulty.
Yeah.
But hopefully that's changing. That would be really great if. I'm not, I don't want to say across the board that they're all that way, because that's not true. Some of my friends have had very, very good experiences with the large labels. So you have to be careful with the contract. So I'm either going to try to get a contract, or release it on my own again.
Yeah, you know, sometimes when a larger label picks you up, and you have that one moment of fame, and that's the end of it. So I think you're doing it the hard way and follow your heart and your guidance. I think you're going to be there for a long time. So, and that's what we're striving, so we could hear you for.
Yeah, well, one of the things in long term too. Speaking of that, once maybe there might come a point where I don't want to perform as much. I would like to get into soundtrack work, and I've done that. I've done some of that already, both for television, film, but dance predominantly is most of my soundtrack. But I'd love to get more into film, soundtrack stuff as well.
If it wasn't for your music, is there any substitutes you could think of, even though you already said that your backup never fell into place?
Dance, I mean the arts. Without the arts, I'd be dead.
You'd be dead.
I might as well be, or in an insane asylum.
But it is so wonderful that you're so focused in, this is what it is you need to do.
There's never been a question.
And that is just wonderful.
Never been a question.
We have some young people who say, well, what do you want to do? And they don't have a clue.
I feel very lucky. Well, I have friends who are, 50. Who still don't know what they want to do when they grow up. I feel very lucky to have known that, because I know that it's very difficult for some people that they haven't found that they haven't found what they want to do.
Yeah.
So
it's really great when your work is your life. I mean, not in terms of workaholic, in terms of fulfillment and.
Yes.
What is your greatest high when you are on that stage?
It's when I am. It's almost like I'm listening to someone else sing through me. There are times that's when it's the highest. When it's almost like I'm hearing things come out of my body that I don't. It's like I'm not supposed to be able to do that. How did I do that? And it's like something else is coming through me, and that's the highest.
And on that note, we're gonna have you play us out, and you know what happens is, this is really a very good bridge to the next show, in which you're going to mostly perform. Great. So we appreciate.
Here goes this microphone.
That's right. What you did for us today. If you'd be nice enough to play us out. Now for the friends, if you like more shows like that, please let me know, and we will be more than happy to invite all the best friends. To come and join you. And again, thank you for coming, and we see you guys next week. And for another great adventure with one of our musician friends. And
I'm going to do an improvisation with a brand new drum of mine. This is one of the good things that came out of Paris, is I found this Persian deaf. And this is it. I'm going to improvise. So this is comes from my Bobby McFerrin and